All right, East Central ISD family. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of our weekly series where we're able to talk in live in real time with you and have, of course, with me as always, Superintendent Roland Toscano. Superintendent, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So let's start off with some updates at the top.
Yeah, so good evening, East Central community. Glad to be with you again, and I'm glad you took the time to visit with us this evening. As you can imagine, and as we all know, there's been quite a bit of interesting news as it relates to potentials for school opening or not. So I just, want to talk a little bit about what happened this week and how it may or may not be affecting us, and offer at least some clarity based on my understanding, our understanding here in East Central ISD of what it all means. So one of the first big things that happened this week is the Attorney General offered not a legal opinion, but essentially guidance that stated that any local health officials do not have the authority to issue a blanket order for school closures. And so that created a bunch of confusion because as we spoke last week, had talked about having to delay our opening for in-person instruction until after Labor Day. And so what legal counsel, and cross-referencing with legal counsels from many school districts have told us is that that is not a lawful opinion, and it does not constitute law, and that in fact the order that we received stands, and that the AG opinion is not in and of itself enough to say that we're not going to abide by the order. In addition to that, we have consistently followed guidance from local health officials, and that guidance is driven by the metrics associated with the coronavirus. And what it sounds like Metro Health and the city are working on is a data dashboard where metrics that matter are going to be transparent and public, so that we will all know the degree to which it would be safe to continue to phase students into our buildings and move towards opening schools. And so those metrics, as we understand them, are positivity rates. And what we understand as of today is that, the health professionals seem to agree on positivity rates between 3 and 5%. And that when you fall within that threshold, it's low risk and it would be safe to consider reopening schools. San Antonio is currently at a 17% positivity rate. In addition to that, they're going to add on their dashboard 14-day declines. So they'll be monitoring the decline of COVID cases over 14-day periods. And then thirdly, the doubling time. And so we're looking forward to that data and information being publicized and available to us, because we all know that our communities are all very different. While we're all in Bexar County, our communities are all very different. So that information will be very useful for our school board and community to make the best decisions in the interest of keeping everybody safe, while at the same time ensuring that we can begin to engage students in meaningful learning. And of course, to the extent possible, get kids in school and enable families to get back to work. Though we all share those same goals for all the same reasons. So moving on to device distribution, we sent out a survey that closed today. And first and foremost, I want to thank all of you, because the request that I made of you was to understand that we didn't have a device for every single student, at least not to start the year. And that if you had a device and you had the ability to connect to the internet at home and engage in remote learning, that you hold off on filling out the survey and let those that may not have any access to a device or any connectivity to fill the survey out first. And based on the requests that we've had through today, it seems like everybody kind of for the greater good did their best to enable us to focus on those that had nothing, and then work our way out into the community to enhance what people have to make it more effective and efficient in a remote environment. So it looks like we have enough devices, barely, but we have enough devices to meet all the needs that were requested. We're also looking at several pieces of data to also prioritize need. So we're trying to use multiple pieces of information to determine, who gets the devices that we have, and then distribute them out until we have no more. So we're looking at, those that qualify for free and reduced lunch. We're looking at data around those that may be academically behind 2 or more years. We're looking at those who have been through an IEP or through academic intervention internal procedures. There's many students across the district that need devices and accommodation when we're in school. And so any of those students would be on the priority list as well. We're also looking at data that we had to submit to TEA in May regarding engagement. Which kids were we able to collect evidence that they could engage remotely, and which kids were unable to engage remotely. And then lastly, any kids who are experiencing varying degrees of difficulty in their homes or in their families, and are being supported through our EC Cares program. And so all of those metrics carry equal weight. And the way it works is essentially a child who meets one of those metrics may be less of a priority than a child that meets 5. But again, I just want to emphasize that it looks like, based on all the requests that we've received to date, we have enough devices to meet those needs. So when we start school on August 17th, we're pretty confident that every family will have the ability to engage in our remote learning platforms. In addition to that, the Texas Education Agency received some CARES Act funding that was intended to go towards education. The decision that they made was to hold those funds and offer a bulk purchase program for instructional technology, and offered to split the cost of additional devices. And they were able to negotiate a more than reasonable rate for those devices and accelerate the lead time on receiving those devices. So I'm happy to report that we are participating in that program. And over the course of the first quarter of the year or so, we anticipate receiving between 2,000 and 3,000 additional devices, to include an additional 1,000 hotspots. So all in all, we believe that we've been able to do the things that we need to do to make sure that as we go through the year next year and are certain to struggle with intermittent closures, possibly because of the pandemic, that every child in every home will have everything they need in terms of technology to continue to experience instruction from each of their teachers in real time or asynchronously, if they prefer that, or a combination of both, as we've been discussing for several weeks. Lastly, we're going to be sending out another survey that you've seen before, and that was the survey that unfortunately created a little bit of confusion, and I apologize for that. But the survey was really, it wasn't registration, which we're going to spend most of our time today talking about. The survey was actually just inquiring about when we're able to begin to serve students in a face-to-face way. Do you intend or prefer for your child to come to school for face-to-face instruction, or do you intend or prefer for your child to stay at home and continue to receive remote instruction? And just to remind everyone, for the course of this entire school year, a family could choose a combination or could choose remote only for the entire year. And if and when appropriate for us to bring children into our buildings and provide face-to-face instruction, a parent could choose that as well. And so we're very optimistic and really hoping that September 8th is that day when everybody has a choice, and that we can follow all risk mitigation protocols and ensure that everybody is safe, and that we can meet every child and family's educational needs in the manner that they prefer during this time. And so tomorrow we're going to send out that survey that asks you to indicate whether you intend to start the year as of September 8th, remotely or in person. And again, we're asking for a 6-week commitment. And the reason we're asking for that commitment is because consistency is really important for our staff and more important for your students. But at any point along the way, of course, on a case-by-case basis, if face-to-face is no longer working, or you're not comfortable with that, or remote instruction seems to not be working for your child, then we'll look at the situation and make that adjustment. But so it's not a firm commitment for 6 weeks, but as firm as you can endure, it would help your child, and it would help us from a planning standpoint as well. So that's what that survey is going to be tomorrow. And we'll run that for 1 week, and then that'll give us 2 weeks until August 17th to plan those logistics in preparation for September 8th. So I just wanted to speak briefly about each of those updates. And at the end of today's conversation, I'll answer any questions regarding any of those topics or any others that you want more information about. But what I would like to do at this time is spend time really talking about registration. Those questions around registration seem to be the most popular. It seems like we have a lot of opportunities to clarify much as it relates to registration, and certainly give you some updates of where we are today with the processes associated with registration. So I'm going to invite Ashley Chohlis to join me and to talk a little bit about registration, and in particular about all of the things that were the most frequently asked questions associated with registration. So Ashley?
All right, well, let me give you just a second real quick as Ashley settles in her seat and gets ready to answer your questions. But I do want to point out that we have a hard stop time of 6 o'clock, so we're going to try to get through as much as we can possibly. But I want to bring up Ashley Chohlis right now. Let's see. Ashley, there you are.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so we have some pre-formatted questions, and then we'll take a couple questions from the audience as well. But the first question in our pre-formatted questions is, where do I go to register?
Right, so the first place you want to go to register is www.ecisd.net. And from the homepage, you'll click on Our Families. And under the Our Families tab, you'll find registration. Click on the registration link, and it will take you to the page that Brandon is showing you right now. So it depends on if you are a returning student or a new student to the district, as far as which tab you'll click from there. So if you are, and I do also want to clarify who are new students and who are returning students. So new students are any child who's never been registered with East Central ISD before. So pre-K kids, they're new students. A student who moves to us from another district but has never ever been in our district before, those are new students. Returning students, so a pre-K kid who's going now to kindergarten, that would be a returning student. A student who's moving from elementary to one of our middle schools, that's a returning student. A student who maybe was with us for elementary and went somewhere else for middle school and is now coming back to us for high school, those are returning students. I do need to say that there are a number of parents who may have gone in and had an issue with registering under returning students because maybe they didn't have a portal ID, or maybe their email didn't match between Texas Connect and our school system, student ID system, or information system, and had a hard time with returning student registration, so they went over to new student registration. If you fall into that category, we're going to have to ask you to please contact your school and get resolved the situation that caused you not to be able to register as a returning student, which may have been that your email doesn't match or that maybe you didn't have a portal ID. If that is the case, we're asking you to go back and fill out the returning student registration. The reason we can't use new student registration if you're really a returning student is because the state tracks all of our children, and once they have a student ID with us, we cannot assign them a new one. We always have to use that same student ID. That's how we identify them in our system, and that's how we identify them to the state as far as being our student. So we're going to need parents who've registered as a new student who are really returning students to go back and register as returning students.
Okay, another question we have is, and keeping on the same thread here, do returning students need to register?
Yes, they do. That's a good question. Do our returning students need to register? Yes, they do, and that's for a couple of very important reasons. That tells us that you intend to have your child continue for next school year with us or to come back to us, number one. And number two, it also designates to the state that you are going to be our student and that we're accountable for you for the year. So we do need all returning students to register. Yes, very good question.
There's another one here. Is there a packet or is it all online?
Due to our situation with COVID-19, everything is online. There is not a registration packet this year. We do have people now in place to make sure that we are getting portal IDs for returning students for parents who don't have them. We do have people in place now to get to correcting email addresses very quickly. As far as I know, as far as this morning goes, for everyone prior to today who made requests for emails and who made requests for portal IDs, they're all caught up. So you can check your email and you should have either a confirmation that your email has been fixed or that your portal ID, you should have your portal ID. Now that we have clerks back on campuses after the summer and after the quarantine, everyone is working on getting all of that up to date every single day. So our turnaround time is now between 24 and 48 hours, and we're really shooting for that 24-hour time period now. So it is all online, and it should go relatively quickly now that we have people back in place to help parents.
Is there a deadline for registration?
So we would like to have all children registered by August 13th so that we know that they're coming back to us. And so we would like to say, yes, August 13th is the deadline. However, all returning students will be rolled over in our system and will have a schedule and will have a teacher assigned to them. So we really need to get everybody registered in the next 2.5 weeks. But please don't panic if you're not able to meet that deadline. Your child will still have a teacher or will still have a schedule.
So during registration, does it give me the option to choose what type of learning I want for my child? Did the survey I did a couple of weeks ago about remote learning or face-to-face learning, does that qualify as a registration for a student?
So during registration, there is not a survey for whether you want face-to-face or distance learning. That is a separate process. So you'll need to register, and then again, the survey that is coming out this tomorrow evening, that'll be open all of next week. That's where you'll declare whether you want your child for the first at least 6 weeks to attend virtually or to come face-to-face once after September 7th, whenever we will hopefully be able to have kiddos back on campuses. The survey that they did previously to declare that for after August 17th, prior to the local health order, that was not registration. That is not registration.
Okay. So another question we get all the time: what is a portal ID? Is that the same as a student ID?
So a portal ID and a student ID, that's a really good question. So they're different, and the portal ID is more of a key or a password. and it verifies your identity as your student's parent to be able to get into our student information system and update their address information or your phone number information. So it's a safeguard. The portal ID is a safeguard to protect your child's information and make sure that only the appropriate people are getting to update it. A student ID, again, is how we track a student through our system and identify a child with the state.
All right. There's another one. Skip one, but I'm going to go to the next one. I have registered for pre-K, but have not been told anything. When will I hear something?
So one common thing that we're finding is that parents will go in and register, but then not call the campus. And so that final step is really important, because whenever you register, it goes to sort of a page in our student information system where you're there, but there's no campus attached to your registration. And so it's very important to call one of our campuses. Thank you, Mr. Oliver, for putting up the website. On the website, it says Our Schools. You can get all the contact information right there. And what you'll need to do is call the campus and let them know that you've completed the online registration process. And they will then make an appointment for you, probably by phone. In most cases, it will be by phone, and then either an administrator, a counselor, or the registrar will call you and will go in and pull your registration from that page over to the campus, verify all of your information as correct, and then actually enroll your child into our system and get you a student ID.
So just to clarify, so let's say I'm a parent. I completed all the registration, text connect. My next step is to contact the campus itself.
Yes, you need to make the phone call to the campus. You can ask for the attendance clerk. That's probably your best person to make initial contact with, and that person will be able to help you complete the registration process.
Okay. Another question. I have not heard from my child's teacher. When will receive information? When will receive schedules?
So elementary teachers will begin calling home on August 6th, and they should be finished contacting all the parents of the kids that are assigned to their class prior to August 13th, which is our Meet the Teacher Day for elementary schools. Prior to that day, all students and parents will have been invited by the teacher via email to come to their Google Classroom during Meet the Teacher. But that'll all be facilitated by the teacher through a phone call prior to August 13th, and that's for elementary. Then for middle school and the high school, for middle schools, parents will receive an email or a phone call by August 10th, because Meet the Teacher is currently scheduled for August 11th. Those will also be in the middle school teacher's Google Classroom. And then additionally, East Central High School and Cass Lee will be sending out schedules and information on how to get into the Google Classrooms by August 11th. And the Google invites will be sent by that time. So teachers will be reaching out here in the first couple of weeks of August, most likely the second week of August, to make contact with students and parents.
All right. Another question is, when do parents have, I know we kind of just touched on this, but just, to go through it again, when do parents have to make a final choice to make a choice between on-campus or virtual? What is the deadline for that?
So there isn't really a hard deadline for that either. Mr. Toscano addressed that earlier whenever he said that we'll have a survey that's open next week, and we are asking parents to make a commitment next week to that first 6 weeks that we can have kiddos back to face-to-face, which is starting September 8th. We're asking them to make a 6-week commitment. Obviously, like Mr. T said, it'll be case to case. If that's not working out for a family, we can revisit, but we are asking that parents make a decision next week regarding that first 6 weeks whenever we start school, hopefully start school September 8th and everyone does have a choice whether they want face-to-face or virtual.
All right. And then one question we get frequently, what about orientations, back to school, meet the teacher, freshman camps, all that stuff? What about those?
So those are going to be virtual. And again, the high school meet the teacher is going to be August 11th, and orientation will be August 11th. And the elementary meet the teachers will all be August 13th. And again, you'll be getting information the week anytime after August, between August 6th and August 12th for the elementaries, and between August 6th and August 10th for the high school, you'll be getting all of that information. But those events will be held online virtually.
All right. And let's see, next one. I'm still trying to register my girls for the new school year. I have our portal ID info, and registration link still is not working for me.
Okay, so most likely the most common situation that we're seeing over and over and over again is that there's an error in the email. So maybe you use the same email, but maybe there's a period missing or a letter missing. So there's a discrepancy between the email that was keyed in our student information system and into Texas Connect. So I'm going to say that if you're still having an issue with the registration link, contact your child's campus, ask for the attendance clerk, and they will double check that your email in both systems is exactly identical. And at that point, what they'll do is if it is, then they'll help you troubleshoot what the situation is, and they'll help you to get your child registered.
Okay, and let's see, another question. Hello, I am unable to register two of my children. Who do I need to contact?
So the first place again to start is going to be the attendance clerk on the campus. Additionally, remember we've got our Talk to Us link for registration on the website. That is being, now that we have people back on campuses, they should be getting with you within that 24 to 48 hour time period. Of course, give us time over the weekend, but use the Talk to Us, or use the, call the school and talk to the clerk. Additionally, it's very helpful in the Talk to Us if you tell us what campus your child should be attending. Brandon, can I go over one thing too for registration?
Absolutely.
As far as uploading documents, if you are not able to upload documents, go ahead and complete the registration, fill in all of your information, call the campus. What you can do is you can email the documents. You can take a picture of your documents and email them to the clerk, which all of their emails are online on the registration website. Email your documents to them. They will set up an appointment to talk to you online, and they'll help you to get registered. Your ID and your electric bill, your CPS bill, do have to match. Okay, so your IDs have to match, and we need all of that information, especially for our new students or for parents who have changed their address. We need that CPS verification. So it's very helpful if you can upload it. And again, if you cannot, you can take a picture of it and email it to the clerk. And if you're having problems with that or unable to do that, use the Talk to Us button on the website or call the attendance clerk on your child's campus, and they will give you some other options.
All right, so that's actually the end of our pre-formatted questions. So I'm gonna, if you have some time, and we have 30 minutes actually until 6 o'clock, so I'm gonna use every single minute. No, but we do have a lot of comments. Let me go into the chat room here, and let me see. I know there was one for sure I wanted to ask at the beginning. I promised Deandra I would ask it. There it is right there. She says, daughter starts a pre-K tradition, been trying to call, get the portal ID. No one answers. She is registered. The login to Text Connect works, but when you click on the student's name, it doesn't work. I will be going to the office myself tomorrow. Well, remember that it's Friday, so the office is closed, but go to my office myself tomorrow if I can't get an answer.
Okay, so pre-kinder students don't need a portal ID. They're new students to us. So new students don't need a portal ID. And what you do whenever it asks for the portal ID, skip that, don't put anything there, and just click continue. And it'll take you right into the system to register her. So I'm hoping that helps. I'm reading the question. Again, if she's a pre-K student, she does not need a portal ID and should be able to just register and then call the campus to schedule an appointment, a phone appointment, to get all of her documentation turned in.
All right, Deandra, I hope that answered your question, because I promised I would ask that one. She asked it several times, and I wanted to make sure we got it. Kathy Borrego, if we filled out that survey previously, do we have to do it again?
Yes, we do. That was the survey in the summer, was for us to gather information about where our community members were at that point in time with sending their kids back. And based on, many things have changed, we have to ask again more formally. And so we are asking that everyone please fill out that survey again in the coming week. And thank you. We appreciate you very much doing that for us.
Michelle Rodriguez asks, what about the host families? And I'll bring up the the ECPD page real quick.
Thank you. So host families who nothing has changed for, if they're a returning host family, all that you need to do is update any contact information that has changed, but your host will roll over. If you are a new host family, then what you'll do is you'll download the host form from our ECPD website, complete it, and you will make copies of your ID and your host family's ID and their CPS bill, and you will need to drop that off at the East Central Police Department. You can call up there first and make contact with them, but they will verify the host, and then they'll get back in contact with you to let you know that it's approved or not, and then they'll pass it along to the campus. So all of that goes through East Central Police Department, and again, you can find directions and forms on their website.
Yeah, and the friendly URL for that is www.ecisd.net/police, and then you can get to all that host form information. Got an immunization question. What about immunization? What do they need to know about that?
So immunizations are still required, and what you'll need to do is either fax those over to the nurse or upload them into Texas Connect through your parent portal, through the ID whenever you register your kids. So again, those are the two choices. You can always fax them over to the nurse at your child's campus, but we do need updated copies of the immunizations.
More difficulties logging in. I know Pat, if maybe we can write her name down or something, but she says she is unable to log in. What can I do?
So I'm going to say again, it's most likely a situation where the email doesn't match. And if you're unable to log in, please use the link on our website, the Talk to Us link for registration, and give us details about the campus and exactly what system you're having an issue logging into, and someone will be in touch with you within 48 hours during the work week.
And then just to kind of touch on what you said, who do we contact if we have issues registering? What is their first stop? We talked about the Talk to Us form.
So I'm also going to say, Brandon, that there are very detailed instructions, very detailed, what if I get stuck, tips, pointers on the website that our Marcom department, Brandon, Lisa, Sam, have created. That should be your first stop, because if you get stuck, there are lots of answers there. There are lots of step-by-steps. There are screenshots of the actual registration pages where you might get stuck and directions. So that would be your first stop. Second stop, send us that, send us a communication with the Talk to Us, or call the attendance clerk at your child's campus.
Do want to point out I got a message actually from Principal Kopek at Tradition for Deandra, because I know she had those questions over and over. She wants Deandra to know that we have her name written down, and they will have the attendance clerk contact her on Monday. So there you go. Really seems like a lot of things can be resolved by contacting the campuses directly now that a lot more people are back. I mean, I know there was a transition time, but now it seems like you can contact your campus, attendance clerk, and probably resolve a lot of these issues.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one's for a new student, new to the district. I just need some reassurance. Register the kids online. What's the next step for the first and fourth grader?
Contact the school that your children will be attending and let them know that you've completed the online registration, and they will schedule a virtual appointment with you to get your to finish the process, to get your children enrolled.
Angela asked, when can we send their meds to school?
That's a good question. So once we determine that kids are able to come back and they're scheduled to come back, you can bring them most likely in the few days before they start, or even the day that they start. You can bring meds. I'm going to say that you probably are going to want to reach out to the campus nurse. Our nurses will be back on campus. And actually already are back on campus. So really any time between now and when kids get to come back would be a fine time to go ahead and schedule an appointment to drop those off with the nurse on your child's campus.
I think this next one just needed clarification. Yvette wrote, and she's been watching. I recognize the name. I believe Mr. Toscano said that they were waiving tuition the last Facebook Live last week, at least for a few weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. Well, we can correct you right now.
That is correct, actually. We are waiving the tuition fee for the first little while until we can figure out exactly what it's going to be this year, until we get through the first month or so of school.
Brenda asked, can you clarify how the commitment choice will be confirmed if there is no email address in the system or entered incorrectly?
So that's going to be a survey form. It's going to be different from the Texas Connect, where you need to have your emails match. Whenever you fill out the form, the commitment choice form, that's in a Google form, and it goes to a separate spreadsheet that goes then to our campuses. So it's going to automatically collect your email address and contact information that you put in, and so it'll be confirmed. We will know that it was you, and we will have your choice on the commitment form.
Right. And we do want to stress that the commitment form is not the same thing as Text Connect, right? That it's two separate things. They're not even really going to talk to each other. We're going to have to go in through the back end and make it talk to each other.
Correct.
So,
correct.
Elena asked, is there any word on when meal pickup will begin again if students are virtual? Sorry if this was already asked and answered. So I guess, can you give us any info on the meal pickups?
So I am not sure. Definitely by August 17th, because that's the first day of instruction. And so most certainly by August 17th. And I feel pretty confident in that answer, is that it's going to be August 17th is whenever meal pickup will begin again.
All right. So, Cindy, I had trouble for two of my kids, send a message and received a very quick response. Thank you for that. Hey, there we go.
Yeah, awesome ladies in the background, working, getting everybody situated for them.
Let's see, again, a new family probably just needs some of that reassurance of East Central reassurance. We are new. What do we do about pre-K tuition? Will we be contacted?
So That I need to take Tiffany's number down. I need to contact Tiffany. If you'll do a talk to us and ask that question, because our pre-K tuition based program, actually the application deadline for that was back in May. And so we are not taking any tuition-based pre-K students at this time. However, if you did complete the process prior to that, you should be contacted here in the next week or so. But what I'll say is, if you completed the process in the spring, please reach out to the campus and ask the question about, make sure that they know that you belong to them, that which campus you belong to in the system. So I'm going to say it again because I don't know how clear I was, but if you're just now inquiring about pre-K tuition-based, please send me a talk to us through registration so that I can contact you. That registration was closed back in May.
Okay. And then did want to point out, let's see, school supplies, that's already out there, and there is school supplies for virtual. Let me see if I can bring it up on the web page real quick here, just to kind of show you guys. Let's see. Go to the home page. It's loading. It's one of the top rotators at the very top. Got some different messages here, but there's the school supply list right there. And if you click on it, I'm actually going to have to switch my screen here. Hold on just a second. Let's see. Share screen, Chrome tab. There it is right there. It's getting ready to pop up for you guys. There it is. So yeah, there is, and you can see right here at the top, face-to-face return, and then as well as a distance learning school supply list. So if you go to ecisd.net, at the very top, you see those little rotating images, and then click on the school supply list, and there it is. Ashley, is there anything else you want to touch on as far as school supplies?
No, sir. We, it is okay and absolutely necessary. Go ahead and write your kids' names on all of their school supplies, because we will not be sharing school supplies this year. So please do that.
Let's see. Blanca wrote, I know we touched on the back to school nights and orientations. Obviously, she's asking here about taking their pictures. I'm assuming that that's pushed back.
So I am sure that probably is pushed back. I don't want to speak out of turn. What I can do is I will ask Mr. McKay when senior pictures are scheduled and ask him to put that on the website for the high school. So absolutely, I'll make a note of that right now for Mr. McKay to please get out some information about senior pictures.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And again, folks, so much it's fluid, it's constantly fluid because things change. I know we've answered this in a previous Facebook Live, but I think we're asking about band students and, students like that take some extracurriculars that need face-to-face. How is that going to be any different? Do you know the answer to that one?
So if he goes virtual, and he's in band, I think I probably would like to defer this question to Mr. Toscano. I'm going to bring him back. I was here for registration, and so I'm going to let Mr. T come on back.
All right. All right. Well, don't go too far, Ashley. But we'll bring Mr. Toscano back in for a couple of these answers. But I'm assuming that indeed there will be, if it's virtual, I think they're going to have those lessons up there. There's Mr. Toscano.
Hi.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so Magali, to the question, the band class will be virtual, and there will be synchronous and asynchronous instructional opportunities during that period of time before September 8th. But before then, Unfortunately, because of closure, we won't be able to have any face-to-face. That goes for athletics as well, per UIL guidance in association with the order. But we are working very closely with the UIL and following all guidelines. And we do have reentry plans for band students to safely begin. And I can tell you they're very meticulous and very stringent so that we can provide that safe face-to-face band experience while at the same time adhering to all the guidance for risk mitigation during this time. So looking forward to getting our students back face-to-face for band, music, choir, and all of our fine arts and extracurriculars.
And one person followed up with that, asking about PE. If you saw last week's Facebook Live, we did the sample schedule and the sample, Google Classroom and the different instructions, and PE was actually in there. If you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so you can follow your schedule, and when it would be time for PE or athletics, you can sync that in live and have your coach provide the daily lesson and activity, and you could participate live. Of course, there will be an asynchronous option as well, where you can follow the workout for the day and do that on your own and on the time frame that works for you. So that will be similar to the way band and all of our other hands-on physical kinds of programs will work during the remote time period. I did hear a question, Brandon, earlier about pre-K tuition, and I just wanted to clarify. Ashley answered that correctly, with the exception that we did decide to forego tuition through the fall. So for the first semester, there'll be no tuition. We'll reevaluate at that point to see what our context looks like, and then reconsider possibly whether tuition at that point going forward is appropriate.
So just going back to technology, we touched on it, folks, at the very beginning. The survey closed today, and so some people are asking, when can they expect to hear something?
Yeah, so campuses now are taking that information and all the data that we've compiled as well, and establishing a list of the students that are going to be attending their schools that are going to be receiving technology. They will send that communication out for in terms of directions for when to come pick them up, and where to come pick them up. And what we're coordinating right now is an effort to provide a one-stop shop, meaning that if you're getting a Chromebook or Chromebooks, if you're getting a hotspot or hotspots, as well as your learning kits, depending on child's grade level, they'll receive a kit with supplies, manipulatives, and things that they'll need to support their learning at home. We're going to package all of those things together and then schedule time, windows of time and appointments for you to be able to come by and pick those things up. Beginning next week and up until August 17th.
Anna wrote, do we have a pre-instructional session for parents if we are going virtual? Well, we are going virtual, but I guess it's more for them. Like, what do the parents need to know in this virtual process? How much do they need to be involved? How can they help, basically help their child?
Yeah. So Anna, thank you for that question. And Brandon, if you could or explain where the video from last live session will be located, because the first thing I would say is to go to that explanation Dr. Fuller gave, where she gave families a tour of what the remote learning plan will look like, and gave a sample schedule and all of those things, because as a parent, it kind of shows you what the interface is going to look like for students, and what that daily schedule might look like if they choose synchronous instruction, asynchronous instruction, or a combination. And that'll kind of help, from a parent point of view, you determine what degree of involvement you may need to have and at what points of the day, depending on your child's schedule and your schedule. But we will provide during Meet the Teacher activities an opportunity for your children's teacher to really walk your child and you through the entire Google Classroom interface, through their entire schedule and familiarize them and, answer any questions you might have. I can also share that we're standing up tech support at all of our campuses, help desk, but in the form of a help desk, so that as your child engages, on August 17th, we expect quite a bit of technical difficulties, and there's going to be embedded in your Google Classroom some contact information, some links to some help desk Google Meets, where in real time you and or your child or together can access real-time help to help navigate any issues you're having with accessing the remote instruction. And so there'll be a little transition period the first few days as everybody gets familiar with the practice and the routine of experiencing remote learning. We're standing up the same help desk support for our teachers as well. And I think that in short order, we're all really engaged in the highest quality remote experiences during that time. And, I want to be clear, they'll never rise to the level of quality face-to-face instruction. So all of our goals are to get there sooner than later and in the safest way possible.
I'm noticing some questions from people straggling in. They're asking about when we will hear from teachers or receive schedules. That's actually at the beginning of this, and we have a hard stop time actually in 8 minutes. So
I'll comment on that just to reiterate. The first and second week of August, depending on your child's grade level, you can expect to be contacted and communicated with in advance of Meet the Teacher events. And then, of course, at the secondary level, many of you will receive in the mail schedules ahead of that time. But that first and second week of August is when all of that activity is going to begin.
Here's a question I have never seen yet about FFA. What are you going to do for kids that need to keep animals for FFA projects at the school barn?
Chris, that's a fantastic question, and I'm going to defer to our ag teachers. I think I know the answer to that question, but I definitely don't want to misspeak. What I'll do is get with Mr. McKay, Mr. and Miss Kempen in the ag department, and make sure that if they haven't already done so, to push that information out to their FFA members as well as their junior FFA members as soon as possible, so that everybody can make the appropriate plans for their animal projects. So, I haven't heard that question either, but I know we've got plans. And so thank you for raising that tonight, Chris.
And we touched on this a little bit last week. Allergies, allergies are bad for me year round. Does her son need clearance from allergist? I mean, we get a lot of the allergies and asthma. If you just want to touch on that.
Yeah, Jess, I too suffer from chronic allergies, and because we're doing the screening on a daily basis, if I wasn't aware it was allergies, I might check yes on one of those symptoms, right? So what I did was I went to my doctor and I said, hey, let's talk about my annual symptoms that I have regarding my allergies, and tell me what I should be looking for regarding concerns associated with the virus. And he said, basically, if the symptoms are similar to what you traditionally experience with your allergies, don't be alarmed. If there's anything different that begins to feel like the flu, then at that point you need to stay home and you need to contact me immediately. So Jess, you won't need to necessarily get clearance, but definitely if there's any symptoms outside of the allergies that your son experiences, so I would contact your pediatrician in advance and clarify what I'm suggesting, and then 2, immediately contact him and stay home if those symptoms change, and then and only then would you need to communicate with us about his condition so that we can work together in managing the situation.
Right. I mean, really, we're looking for things that aren't common. I mean, if you have allergies and you take medication for it, it's common to sneeze with hay fever, or what the case may be. But if it's kind of out of the norm, and it seems severe, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Mr. Toscano is something that's a little different than normal. If you normally have asthma, you take your inhaler, you're clear. That's routine. We're looking for a little bit more out of the routine.
Yeah, the itchy, watery eyes, the congestion, the little itchy throat that's common with allergies for each individual person, and it's less necessarily about those symptoms and if whether they're common for you or not. So at least that's what my doctor told me. If it's what you typically experience, then don't get alarmed by that. But if you're experiencing something outside of that, you need to contact me immediately. So, I guess as a rule of thumb, we'll err on the side of caution personally as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one more question, and then I want to show something. I want to show off something, Mr. Toscano. But
Okay.
a lot of people, are stressed, a little worried about technology needs. Like Vanessa, she has 4 kids, no computers in the home. At the end of last year, it was tough with 1 laptop. If I can't get Chromebooks for all 4, sharing is going to be difficult. What about those families that have multiple children? And then, what are some other alternatives other than a computer? Because really, there's a lot of devices that can run Google Classroom.
Yeah. So first response, Vanessa, is I'm assuming when you filled out the survey that you did fill one out for each of your children and request a device for each. And so that being said, based on the number of requests that you received, assuming that you did request one for each of your children, it's very likely that you will be able to get one for each of your children. But that being said, you could also use a iPad. You could also use a smartphone. They're definitely not as user-friendly for schooling all day, every day than perhaps a Chromebook would be. But they're definitely tools that could access Google Classroom. So I hope that answered the question, Ms. Santia. And if we get to a place where what we're able to provide isn't going to be acceptable, reach out to your campus principal. And as I said early in the meeting this evening, we are leveraging additional resources. And shortly after the start of the year, within the first quarter of the year, we do expect to have as many as 3,000 additional Chromebooks and an additional 1,000 hotspots, which I feel confident is going to enable us to meet every need, to include yours. So hopefully we'll be able to do that by August 17th. But we'll work together with you to make sure that we get you what you need sooner than later.
If Vanessa, I think you might have said this, but if Vanessa did only do one response, but has 4 kids, is she able to maybe alter that or talk to the campus and see if there's any accommodations that can be made or anything like that?
Yeah, for some reason you only filled out the survey for 1 student. Communicate with your campus principal, and they're going to be capturing that information, and we'll work through that on a case-by-case basis. And again, our goal is to make sure that every household has what they need for every child in their household. And based on the requests we've received and the inventory of devices we have, we believe we can get the year started with all those needs met. But in addition to that, with what we've got coming, we believe that we can take care of all the households in our community. So just be patient and communicate, and know that we're going to advocate for you and work with you to make sure that during this remote learning time and any remote learning time throughout the year, that devices and connectivity are not the barrier.
Right. And we said earlier on with Ashley that, there's a lot more help now. People have returned. There's that kind of transition in between contracts for certain folks and things like that. But, everybody seems to be, back working hard, working around the clock. And I got to give a lot of love out to our registration folks, Maria Cantu. For a while, it was just like her. So, but now we're able to answer a lot of these questions. So, as we've said many times, reach out to your campus initially for a lot of these issues, because they're back and they can help you out directly. And we show it on the website too. If you go to ecisd.net, go to our schools, you'll see the list of schools. You just contact your school. The information is right there. Mr. Toscano, I wanted to show you, because that was the last question we'll ask, but I wanted to show you, so far, I wanted to do a big launch, so maybe for the people watching, they could get a little sneak peek. But we are doing a standalone website directed only towards back to school and the remote learning and the strategies going forward, because we do know that there needs to be a one-stop shop for a lot of this. And so if you go to ecproud.com, ecproud.com, all one word, and this is still in its infancy, we're still adding things and changing things, but there you see the navigation to the list. You could see supply lists, information about immunizations, and then also there's the archive for Mr. Toscano's Facebook Lives. You can click on that and go back and watch any of the other Facebook Lives that we've done. The draft of the reentry plan is also up there. And like I said, it's a living, breathing website, standalone, ecproud.com. We'll keep adding and stuff to it as we need. But we have some frequently requested items on there. So I wanted to kind of show that off because marketing made that. Old Sam made that today. So good job, Sam. Anything you want to touch about that, Mr. Toscano, or?
Oh, it looks fantastic. And, I want to also thank our registrars and especially Maria, who's worked so hard by herself along with Cindy throughout the summer. But the team is back, and the service that you should be experiencing is going to be, it was good given how we were staffed, but it's going to be fantastic in what you need and what you expect going forward. So thanks to all those folks who've been working so hard and will continue to do so to help you with your registration needs. But in addition to that, I just want to reinforce that, our goal here is to be as transparent as we can be, to be as available, to be present, to keep our community informed, and to keep the lines of communication open. When we're at our best, we've always done that. But going forward, there can be no other way in the environment that we find ourselves in. We have a desire to be a school system that meets the needs of all of our families and that aligns to the hopes and dreams that you have for your children. And there's no way to do that other than to communicate regularly and in real time, and to have two-way conversations and feedback loops to inform the things that we're doing to enhance the experiences your children are having. So all in all, we're proud of the work we're doing. We know that we continue to be a work in progress, and we're never satisfied with where we're at. And so just know that you have a committed school system full of people who are constantly going to be reflective, constantly going to be adjusting, and constantly going to be committed to making sure that this is the definitive choice to live, and this is the definitive choice to send your kids to school. And so with that, we'll conclude this evening. Again, I thank you for taking the time to join us each and every week, and we'll continue to do this, as often as we need to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're doing the right things the right way at the right time. So I wish you a great evening and a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.